Hey everyone, it's Amanda Radke back for another episode of the Heart of Rural America podcast, the show where we highlight inspiring people doing great things in rural America to make agriculture and their communities stronger. We are just kicking off April and we're coming off a fantastic March Ag Literacy Month. You guys know that I'm a children's book author and have 9 different books out. And so it's been a busy month kind of coast to coast across America as teachers and cattlemen's groups. Any kind of ag literacy program has used the books as they're intended as an educational resource to teach kids about where their food comes from. If you're not familiar, I work or have a publishing company called Ag Storytellers that I own with my illustrator, Michelle Weber, who is a wonderful artist and ranch mom of 5 from Minnesota. And together, we coordinate and work with clients across the country who want to share their agricultural story. And so we have a long list of clients that we've worked with, but one of those is the South Dakota Beef Industry Council and Beef Logic. And so today on the show, I have representatives from the Beef Council here to talk a little bit about their programs and the books. So welcome to the show, Les Shaw and Riley Zoss-Littau.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amanda.
So I guess just briefly, just kind of tell the audience who you guys are. Let's start with you. Tell me about your role with the Beef Council and Beef Logic, and maybe just kind of an overview of those programs.
Well, my name's Les Shaw. I'm on the South Dakota Beef Industry Council. I'm the chair of the promotions committee, and we take different authorization requests from different organizations that have ideas, and we choose whether we can fund them or not, and if it's a good idea. And I'm vice president of Beef Logic also.
Wonderful. And tell us a little bit about Beef Logic, what that is, and how it came to be.
Beef Logic gives kind of a contractor, shall we say, to the South Dakota Beef Industry Council, and we also work with other organizations for promotion. It's a nonprofit group, so it kind of takes a few of the USDA regulations off of us, and we have a little bit broader parameters where we can work with. We can take donations and funds in and blend them with other checkoff dollars and expand that promotion deal through it. It's a pretty revolutionary thing that we've come up with, or I shouldn't say we, but some of them have come up with, and I've got to be a member of. I'm proud to be a member.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And Riley, tell us a little bit more about your role with the Beef Council and the Beef Ambassadors and all the things you do.
Yeah, so my role at the South Dakota Beef Industry Council is I'm their communications manager, as well as their South Dakota Junior Beef Ambassador Coordinator. So, we're a small team at the South Dakota Beef Industry Council, so job titles usually get mixed around quite a bit. So just anything from day-to-day social media, press releases, media, podcast, setting all that up. Les is a great board member that gets a lot of phone calls from me to do radio interviews and things such as this. So that's kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis, and then coordinate those South Dakota Junior Beef Ambassadors and everything that they do.
Cool. Well, and you guys do great work, and it's been a busy 2024 so far. Maybe talk a little bit, and you both can take a shot at it. But some of the projects that you've worked on are promotional, education, research things that are ongoing in 2024.
Well, I can't speak a lot on the research. We've got about 4 things going on the research. I'm not on the research committee. We deal a lot with SDSU and some of the things that they do there. But with promotions, we have a presence at basically any major event. We try to have a presence there. Black Hill Stock Show, we have a pretty big footprint with that. We're active all week, all 10 days with that. Different events, different speakers, stage times, booths, giveaways, swag, informational things. And we are at the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. We're at the PGA, the Sanford International PGA Tournament in Sioux Falls, which is a huge event. That one kind of caught me off guard. I didn't realize the size, the magnitude of that event, and the reach we have with that. It's worldwide, and it's a group that we need to get our message out to. I think pretty important. We do a lot of national programs with the Federation as well, some digital media on May Beef Month during the holidays, promoting things. I believe Riley might touch on this too, but I believe we're going to join in on the summer grilling season with some of their digital advertising and things. Those are some of the major ones I can think of off the top of my head, I guess.
Okay. Anything else to add, Riley?
Yeah, so we partner with Federation quite a bit on some digital media, and they're running a campaign right now called "Together We Bring More," and we here in South Dakota have really tried to capitalize on that throughout every time of the year. So we'll be bringing that into Summer Grilling Month in the beginning of May Beef Month as well.
Okay, so explain that concept to me. I don't know if I've seen this yet.
Yeah, so Together We Bring More. It's all about how us as an ag industry, we all have a very important part in bringing a high quality protein to the table. Whether that's you're the beef farmer or rancher, maybe you're the veterinarian, maybe you're the guy who runs the feedlot down the road, even your local sale barn. It takes everybody to get that protein from pasture to plate.
Very cool. Very cool. And I guess one project that I was thinking of as you guys were describing, ongoing promotional efforts. I spoke in Syracuse, New York, earlier this year, and got to reconnect with some of our friends over there with the Northeast Beef Promotion Initiative. Can you guys speak to that? And I know in a place like South Dakota where the cows outnumber people 4-1, this is a pretty beef friendly state overall. Talk a little bit about that New York or that East Coast promotions that you guys do.
It's a very good partnership. Thank you for bringing that up, Amanda. I failed to bring that up, but yeah, like you said, we're 4-1 cattle versus people in South Dakota. In New York, they're 1-4 the other way or less, and so it makes sense for us to take dollars that we maybe could spare and send them to a state or a region Northeast, and they put it in high schools and home ec programs, culinary schools, restaurant teaching, different things, and they show the cuts and how they can take the big cuts, the primals, and cut them down and get what something unique that they can offer their consumers and maybe showcase our product a little bit better in their restaurants and for the young adults and stuff in college or in high school in those culinary classes as well.
Yeah, it's a really cool program. A lot of people might not know, but a million years ago, when I was a kid, 18 years old, I was a South Dakota and National Beef Ambassador, which was a checkoff funded program that took us coast to coast promoting beef at different consumer events. And one of those was or a few of those actually was with that Northeast Beef Promotion Initiative. So we did a cooking contest with like celebrity chefs in Washington, D.C. We also did a promoted beef at the Boston Marathon, and we served beef stew to athletes and attendees and talked about beef as a premier protein source for athletes. And it was quite the education for a farm girl from South Dakota to get some of those questions from these urban consumers on what do you mean this is how beef is raised? And a lot of those questions come in a form of accusations too. So you get really good at kind of being thrown into the fire on some of these things of defending your values and how beef is raised and the integrity of the people who are stewards of the land and livestock. And yeah, it was quite the education, but I've always just really appreciated that effort out there. And it's hard to see your checkoff dollars at work when you send them somewhere else, and yet that's exactly what they need to do. Riley, you're laughing. You probably
Yeah,
get that once in a while, huh?
a few.
Yeah.
I think we forget how fortunate we are here in the state of South Dakota. I know there's work to do in convincing people to choose beef in South Dakota, but you think about, that Northeast Beef Promotion and how much harder they have it there than we do right here in the state of South Dakota. So, I guess for me, those checkoff funds that we can raise here in the state of South Dakota, if we can put them to good use other places too, I think that's definitely worth a dollar.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And now looking back on it and seeing just kind of fast forward to these books, it kind of comes full circle because we did have an athlete book. So I guess if I can talk briefly about how this came to be. So we have 3 books out with the South Dakota Beef Industry Council and Beef Logic, and myself as a South Dakota rancher paying into the checkoff program. My Michelle and I had this company that created books, and we thought, well, maybe we could pitch this to the board of directors at a South Dakota Beef Industry Council meeting. So we prepped, we filled out the authorization request, went and made our pitch. If I remember right, I think I pitched 2 years in a row. Did I or no? Yeah,
I
I
think
think.
you're right.
Yep. So, just firsthand experience, the board was pretty tough on me. They asked some tough questions. To me, everyone in that room is really passionate about the beef cattle industry and wanting to be a good steward of that dollar. And so, kind of had to prove myself a little bit. And so, kind of, I left frustrated after the first year. Regrouped, went and wrote out my authorization request again, and came back, and I brought my daughter Scarlett with, hoping they'd be a little nicer to me if my kid was with me. And just full transparency, that was the plan. But thankfully, we came to an agreement that we would do a 3-book deal over 3 years. And so the result of that project was 3 books that went through the whole process with the USDA. The first one was Beef Strong. That book really focuses on nutrition for athletes, sports nutrition, and talking about beef as a part of a healthy, active lifestyle and diet. The next book that came out, it was frankly kind of inspired by COVID, of when the world kind of shut down, and most consumers really are on the go a lot, and they're eating fast food, or they're packing a lunch because they're going to sporting events or kids activities, and they're on the go. The world shut down, everybody is at home. All of a sudden people are like, wait, I have to cook meals at home. I don't know how. And so that discussion of, does our consumer know how to prepare beef, kind of came in the discussion of creative brainstorming for the book. And the book Roll, Spread, Sprinkle, Bake was the result of that, which the theme of that was these kids spent a day with grandma, and grandma taught them how to make beef pizzas. And then the final book that just came out, that one is called The Journal of Rowdy the Cow Kid. And we look at 12 months of a calendar year and what life is like basically for a kid who raises beef cattle. And so everything from planting and harvest to weaning and calving to the grazing season to going to the county fair. And I'm really proud of those books, and it was a great partnership, and fun to kind of see it all come to fruition and the different themes that we discussed. But that's why I wanted you guys on the show today, was to talk a little bit about how the Beef Council has been using those books, and maybe just some feedback of what kids and families have been saying as you've used these tools, in the classroom and in your educational, programs.
Amanda, my first Beef Council meeting was the day that you came to pitch the second time with your daughter, and there was no way they were saying no.
I remember I was pretty nervous, and I was like, right. I remember you and I made eye contact, and I was like, well, it was nice knowing you. They're skewering me again.
No. Bringing her along was the perfect touch.
Yeah. Of course, now she writes her own books, so she's
right.
like, she doesn't even need me anymore. But yeah, I forgot that memory of that day. So, but your junior beef ambassadors have been using the books. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the South Dakota Junior Beef Ambassadors have been using that book throughout the month of March, and we sent that book out to each one of them. And this year, there's 43 South Dakota Junior Beef Ambassadors. When we started this Junior Beef Ambassador program 4 years ago, we had under 20 Junior Beef Ambassadors, and it's just continuously grown year after year. But we sent them out that book, and we just said, hey, get into your communities, read this book, and then donate that book.
Mm-hmm.
What better way than to read it to them, but then donate it to those schools. And we've had several South Dakota Junior Beef Ambassadors participate in that campaign. And if you follow us on any of our social medias, you can see those posts of each one of those Junior Beef Ambassadors going into their classrooms, lower level classrooms, and promoting that book for the whole month of March.
it's been really cool to see because other beef councils are picking it up too. Like the Pennsylvania Beef Council bought a whole bunch of books, and so I was seeing all their posts of all the things they were doing out there, and I had no idea what their plans were. But they kept ordering more. I think they'd pass out 30, and then they'd call and need some more. And so I had texted Riley at some point in March. I was like, "Dude, Rowdy is everywhere," and
Everywhere.
so I really think. I mean, I'm biased probably, but I would say the Chekhov gut is getting a pretty good bang for its buck on this one. It's put in a lot of miles. I know we were up at the just ourselves, our family. We went up to the North Dakota Winter Show and read the book up there. We did our egg in the classroom event in Mitchell, where all the area fourth graders come. We bring a baby calf and the kids, Thorn and Scarlet, were reading that book, and so it's fun. It's one of those things that a book can sit on the shelf forever and ever, be picked up over and over again and be used. So Les, can you talk a little bit about the Beef Strong book and how Beef Logic uses that book?
Sure. Well, Beef Logic kind of came about mainly because of our Build Your Base program. The Build Your Base program is our biggest program out there, right? It's kind of revolutionary. It's being mimicked and used by all over the United States by many teams. We first supplied them with your book. That was the beginning of it. It was just a tutorial and an inspiration. If I can, I'll back up. I think it's revolutionary to look at targeting kids and habits at an early age, and the mothers that are reading these books and stuff, and getting our information out there. As a kid, I grew up the cowbells. You had recipe cards and recipe books, and that's how we were going to promote beef. And not that that's not important, but this is something, a whole new view when you go to the children and create healthy eating habits and a little bit of ammunition to the misinformation out there of, I mean, the book touches on it with the environmental issues, and that, I mean, ranchers and farmers are the original conservationists. I mean, we're the ones that are taking care of the soil, and this book shows that. But to get back to the Build Your Base, we gave all those schools and those teams that were enrolled in the book, and it had great reviews. They, like Riley said, it went to a lot of the libraries then in those schools and stuff, and it was used. One thing you might not know is we have provided this new book to the IFL teams, and it's going to be in their toolbox. And this is a national, organization with teams in San Jose, California, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Florida, Texas, all over. And those athletes kind of by contract are demanded to go out and do public outreach to schools and help be advocates in their community and role models. And they'll take these books and they read it, and they'll take jerky sometimes that we provide as well, and in a message of what we're doing here in South Dakota, because I know you know it, but hopefully some of these people on the podcast realize that we in South Dakota kind of have a somewhat understanding of agriculture. You especially, you leave the state and it is so foreign that they do not understand agriculture at all, and so we need to inform them and let them know that these are family ranches and farms, and we do care for the livestock, we care for the land, and beef is good for you. It's a very nutritious protein.
Right.
I guess
ahead.
something we push every day at the South Dakota Beef Council is consumer confidence. We wake up in the morning and show up to work, and that's the main priority, is pushing consumer confidence and talking to these consumers and making sure that they know that beef is a great choice, and they should feel very comfortable feeding that to their families. South Dakota beef farmers and ranchers truly care, and they live every day to raise that high quality protein.
Right. And I always say farmers and ranchers are the best storytellers to go out and share that story. But I also think partnering with folks like Olympic athletes and high school and college athletes that are really at the top of their game in what they do. And when they go into classrooms and uh, wearing their gold medals as an example, and they go in and say like, hey, my training regimen and the way I can get stronger and heal from injuries, yeah, I eat steak. It's awesome. It's a really cool thing. Talk a little bit maybe about that, how those partnerships with Olympic athletes came to be. It's just such a neat thing.
It's been a lot of fun with Peyton Otterdahl and Chris Nielsen and the lady hammer thrower. Riley, help me out.
Deanna Price.
There, Deanna. My apologize, Deanna. I drew a blank. They're such great advocates. We hit the lottery when we chose those. Susie chose very well. They are excellent role models. They're very fluent. They have a certain personality that kids and adults all gravitate towards them. When we go to speaking events, whether it be we were at a grade school in Spearfish, or we're at School of Mines or BH, they have everybody. It's a dead quiet room. They're riveted to their stories of what beef has done for them in their training and in their injury recovery, the results they've seen because of it. I can't say enough about the quality and the good investment that was to have them on our team. And probably top-notch athletes as well. I mean, you look at Chris, a silver medalist in the world, phenomenal. And I think we've got some higher goals this year, and I think we're going to have better results. Deanna especially.
I think probably one of the best things we ever did with those Olympians is we brought them to South Dakota and we introduced them to beef farmers and ranchers. And they learned really quickly that beef farmers and ranchers are some of the best people in the world. Mm-hmm. You know, and you talk to Deanna, Chris, Peyton, and they're always excited to come back and meet those beef farmers and ranchers and get into those schools. And that's just been a really great relationship that we've maintained with them. And we're excited to see where it goes.
And I would say too, when kids just get to, it's like they soak up the information like sponges when seeing these athletes come into the classroom, because they're like, oh, I want to do that when I get older. It's an aspirational thing. And yeah, it's been just really fun to follow along with them and just see how this has kind of grown organically. And yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. I would be remiss. I was thinking about, Les, you had mentioned like the recipe cards and that kind of thing. I had seen on Facebook today, someone, or Twitter, actually, X had said like, don't you think we need to come back with the classic beef it's what's for dinner commercials? And I'm sure you guys get that all the time, but I think back to those, like the good old days of early with some of these advertisements, and they're considered iconic now, really. Yeah. But I just have to think, mention some of those original players for me. When I got kind of involved in the Beef Ambassador program, I was 10 years old. My grandma was on the board of directors, Carol Wink. And then I came to know other real leaders at that time, Julie Feldhaus and Sue Simpson and the late Delina Nagel. And they were so influential on me and taking a young kid around and teaching them or teaching, kids like me about how to promote beef and answer questions and talk about beef byproducts and beef nutrition and seeing how they would handle some of the consumer questions that would come at them. I remember being at a baseball event and just seeing Delina Nagel just rattle off the facts and figures because she was just so passionate about the beef industry. But now it's, kind of the next generation carrying the torch, and it's cool to see it all evolve. So with that being said, what are some things coming down the pike that you guys are excited about? Any projects or promotions in the months ahead?
Yeah, so actually I should have mentioned this earlier. We just got done with a big event in Sioux Falls, which is Egg Friday and Egg Day at the Washington Pavilion.
Okay.
That was a huge event for us and always is every single year. Egg Friday brings in over 50 third grade classrooms from the Sioux Falls area with roughly over 600 kids. So we got to be in front of about 600 kids. Each one of those teachers from those 50 classrooms went home with a Journal of Rowdy the Cow Kid book.
Cool.
for their classrooms. And then we just got to promote beef and talk about what cows eat and explain to them where their beef comes from. And, you know, those third graders are pretty excited to be there, and it's a good day. And then Egg Day at the Pavilion was that next Saturday. And same thing. We just got to talk to families and their kids about beef and help convincing them to choose beef. And they got to go home with some beef swag as well. So that's something I should have mentioned earlier. And but that's a really great event that we use that book. And I hope we have more opportunities to use the book at events like that too.
It's very cool. And I should have mentioned too, this kind of whole thing got started. I had written a book in 2011 titled Levi's Lost Calf, and I figured it'd be a one and done type thing, just kind of a bucket list thing. But the Georgia Beef Council that works with the Checkoff program as well, they had ordered a bunch of farm books off Amazon, and one of them was Levi's Lost Calf, and they liked it the best, and they called me and said, hey, would you ever write a book for us? And so there's another book that went through the whole USDA checkoff process, and that one is called Can Do Cow Kids. And in that book, we focused on beef careers or careers in agriculture, because not everyone can grow up to be a farmer or rancher, but they could be a nutritionist or agronomist, veterinarian, and on the list goes. And that was really a pivotal thing, not only for the books, but just in my career as well. But that book, we got to promote it. The governor read it, Governor Kemp down there on Egg Literacy Day down in Georgia. And the rest, I guess, is kind of history. But maybe let's talk about maybe some of the misconceptions people have about the checkoff. And you guys hear it all the time. And Les is like, he's like, really, are we going there? But I think there would be, and maybe it doesn't have to be as loaded of a question as I portrayed it as, but I feel like a lot of people that are complaining, maybe necessarily, they're not the first ones to go out and promote beef on their own. So maybe a better way to phrase the question would be like, for the naysayers that maybe aren't certain about the impact of the checkoff. Here's how I want to frame it. How can they use some of the resources that are coming from these programs, this research, education, promotion, and use it themselves? I mean, because that's kind of how my mentality, where I landed was, I'm an independent rancher. These resources are out there. These tools are out there. I'm going to use them, and I'm going to go put them to work, even though I'm not on the board of directors. I'm not, a part of it. So yeah, that would be my question, is how can your average cattle producer who maybe isn't so sure about the checkoff actually utilize some of the things that you guys are putting out?
Well, I guess I'll start with the biggest misconception. The checkoff was created to increase beef demand. That's it. That's what it is for. And that's through education, promotion, and research. And that's all we can do. We can't get involved in policy. And some of the frustrations I hear, I would say 95%, is, why aren't you supporting this? Or why aren't you pushing this? We can't. That's not our job. It's, as I've said before, it's like using a crescent wrench for a hammer. That's not what we're here for. We are to increase beef demand. If you want to do the other things, there's other organizations that are doing those, and get involved in those as well. If they're interested in increasing beef demand and seeing beef fly off the shelves, they should get together, come up with an idea, an event or something, fill out what we call an authorization request to the Beef Council. It'll be submitted to the promotion committee, or if it's a research project, it'll go to research committee. We'll look it over. We'll check its validity. We've got 10 points that we're kind of supposed to go over that the criteria meets, like, is this actually going to increase consumer spending for beef? Does this promote a positive outlook on beef or the beef industry? Few of those things, that'll just kind of the surface cost, the number of people reached, those type things. And the committee votes, thumbs up, thumbs down. If it passes committee, it goes to the whole board. The whole board is made up of 8 organizations, 3 members of each organization, 24 there. Each organization gets 1 vote, thumb up, thumb down. It passes. If it's approved from the promotion committee's recommendation, the funds are given. And we also depend on, we decide on how much to fund that, what level to fund. If we fund it in full or partial, we may, as like you, Amanda, you said the first time it didn't work, we went into negotiations. There were a few things we'd like to see tweaked, and we tweaked those things and we worked it out, and we came up with a great product.
And I would say from firsthand experience too, with the number of board members, I would always say I have to keep a lot of people happy here, and a lot of people. It's not like you guys are all in agreement all the time either, but there's accountability there with that, and it's good. It makes everybody sharper. Go ahead, Riley.
I guess my biggest suggestion to people wondering about their checkoff is join us for a quarterly board meeting. Though you can come in and learn about the checkoff, what we're doing with your dollar, and hear about all the things that we're doing. Whether that's here in the state of South Dakota, or maybe that's on a national level, or even with those South Dakota Junior Beef Ambassadors. Come join us, learn about your checkoff. I've known several people who maybe weren't checkoff supporters. They got involved, and they come back to you and they say, I never knew what my checkoff dollar was actually doing. So that's reassuring to hear people that actually take the time to come in and learn what that dollar is actually doing all around the United States.
Well, I would say just kind of from an outsider in, it's like, yes, you're paying that dollar, and there are resources for you. So I tell people, okay, you have cattle, maybe you're selling beef, you want to improve, expand, reach your customers on an independent level. Well, there's all this great research, there's these recipes, there's all these things. Like, you don't have to recreate the wheel. It's there for you. And over the years, I've used the Beef It's What's for Dinner website. I've used the research on environmental studies. I've referenced them in things that I've put out to my own audience, and so I figure it's there. It's available for any producer to utilize. Go and use those tools and see how it might help you in your own operation as well. And
absolutely, if anybody out there ever is looking for something educational, for a project or for their classroom, feel free to reach out to us. We have tons of informational brochures, posters, things like that we can offer, and just educational resources, even on the federation level, the national level of the checkoff, that has a lot of resources we can give you as well.
Research is kind of the unsung hero of the checkoff. I think it's kind of the behind the scenes deal. But it has been so critical, because we can all remember the 80s, the dark time in beef industry, and some of the misinformation and what they were saying about beef. Red meat was a bad word, and research has proven that wrong. The American Heart Association endorses lean beef now, and that's because of checkoff dollar research, and that's a positive. Is it perfect? No program's perfect. Does it do way more good than negative? Absolutely. We have done a lot in the climate deal now. That's our next battle. We've already started to rebuke some of that. So it's exciting. Like Riley says, you can go down a wormhole and spend an evening, no problem, and wonder, where did the time go? Because there's a lot of information there.
Yeah.
Well, Les, I hate to burst your bubble, but I don't remember the 80s. Touche.
I was trying to think back, like, well, what's going on back then? Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that with the heart deal, because I know so many doctors, like in the heart hospital in Sioux Falls, like the first thing that a doctor would say is like, you need to cut out the red meat, to save now that you've had a heart attack. And yet now Holly Swee has done an exceptional job in her role, both as in the Beef Council and now with Beef Logic, of building those relationships with medical professionals who once would have said like, hey, no more beef for you, buddy. And now are saying, hey, here's, yes, you can have beef, and let's get you on the right track to health and wellness. So it's hard to measure some of those successes, I think, and unless they're happening.
we're very lucky to have Holly at the South
Yes.
Dakota Beef Industry Council.
Holly speaks at 2 cardiologist conventions in the state on each side, and yeah, she's in. I've heard from a few of the doctors that they say that she is the highlight of the deal. She's spot on professional.
That's great. So I guess to kind of close out the show, we just have a few minutes here. What advice would you have for producers listening on promoting beef? I mean, maybe talk about the hardest questions you've ever gotten and how you've addressed some of those ones, or I guess just anything you'd like to offer for folks.
This is something I tell my junior beef ambassadors all the time. Just tell your story.
Mm-hmm.
Your day-to-day life, what you do with your family, and why you're committed to raising that high quality protein. And that'll get you far.
Mm-hmm.
Be confident and just be passionate.
I think just take a step and get active. If you've got complaints, get active. Go out there and educate yourself, and get out and get along other people in the industry and learn and help push forward. I a few years ago, when I decided to take this on about 9 years ago, it's been a step. I've been on Beef Council now 7. I had no idea where I'd be. I mean, we've hosted 2 different foreign tours chefs at our ranch. We've had New York celebrity chefs, Justin Warner. He and I are good friends. We text back and forth, and the people I've met and the impact you can have on people, just what Riley said. Visit with people, tell your story, because they really don't know what we do.
Right. And yeah, I feel like once people know, I always say if people had the chance to meet America's farmers and ranchers, they would fall in love with them, even though the news every day has something negative. And the other great thing is we do have the truth on our side, that producers are stewards of the land and livestock. They truly care about both. And beef is a nutritional powerhouse that is just so beneficial to human health and a healthy, active lifestyle. So with that, I want to thank you guys for coming on the show, and we will include in the show notes some links so folks can go learn more about the checkoff and the books and all the things. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you soon on the Dusty Trail.
You bet. Well, thanks for sharing your talents, and thanks for this.
Thanks for having us.
You bet.